And to find out more about Auburn, Illinois, I have Dan Dixon with us, who is the Auburn historian. Hi, Dan.
Hi.
Welcome to the Sangamo road trip. We're doing a little different take today because we are traveling around to each town in Sangamon County to learn more about it. And Auburn is on my next travel list, and I want to make sure that I don't pass up any of the stories in Auburn that are important, and also different stops that I should take. So what are some of the exciting stories in Auburn that you think that everyone should know about and that we should go see?
Well, actually, maybe we could start out with how Auburn was formed. Um, Originally, the settlement of Auburn was north and east about a mile of the current town. It was known as the Sugar Creek Settlement for a little while, and then that was founded in 1835. They lasted until 1860, when the lands were sold to the newer area, which was the town of Weinman. And at one point, the town of Weinman um, split off with the to the west side, and a new town of Auburn was formed. Uh, the new town of Auburn and the town of Weinman existed for a short period, but 1854, I'm sorry, 1864, 65 was the year that the Illinois government decided that it would actually be one town instead of two towns, and it became the town of Auburn. Um, from the original town of Auburn, there were about 6 or 8 buildings at one point, including the um, Eagle Inn, which is where the Eastman family had their house. It was like a stagecoach stop, and they had a stop for the mail route, and about 4 or 5 businesses. They didn't really get going at all until the close to 1860, when Philip Weinman had his town platted, and he was able to convince the railroad, the Chicago and Alton Railroad, to move their line right next door to his town. So that ended the original town, which was the Sugar Creek Auburn town, which had been a stagecoach line. They were mainly interested in the stagecoach as their main transportation at that time. But when the railroad came through, Philip Weinman had worked for the railroad, and he knew that he had timber land that he could use the wood to make the planks for the railroad, and he wanted to have his water tower next to his town. So he somehow convinced these people that his town was a better choice than Auburn. So the people that lived in Auburn finally gave up, and they closed out the land by 1860, 61. And Madison Curvey bought the land and plowed it up and made farmland out of it. And some of the buildings, original buildings, were moved into New Auburn. Uh, New Auburn and Wyman existed at the same time. By 1864-65, the state legislature had finally decided that they just wanted one town, and Philip Wyman conceded to let it be called Auburn, because most of the people that moved down from the original town of Auburn wanted it to be Auburn. You can kind of figure out where the different portions of Weinman were located by the on the north east side of the square, which at that time was the Miners Union Hall and the Miners Cooperative. It was prior to that, it was the Kessler Funeral Home. And then after the Miners Union Hall, it became the place for Rua's dry goods. And Rua's were there from the 1930s until probably the 1990s. On the side of the building, you'll see a little black and white photo that has Rua's, R-U-A apostrophe S, as the little advertising. I think it's a either a wine and cheese bar or a regular bar now. I'm not quite sure what it is. On the north, that's the northeast. On the northwest was Modder's Drugstore, where we had our first ice cream parlor. I have a picture of some gentlemen sitting at the area where you get your ice cream, and there's a mirror in the back, and it makes the building look a lot longer than what it actually was. But unfortunately, they had to take that building down because it was starting to fall apart. The bricks, I got a couple bricks, so I was able to save those. And then across the street on the northwest corner was originally the Heron Cafe, and then they sold out to the Auburn State Bank, and Auburn State Bank eventually became the UCB Bank.
Okay.
The north part of the west side was the I always get these two stores mixed up. It was a five and dime store, and right next to it was the Wyman Opera House and the pharmacy. The pharmacy was on the lower level, and the opera house was on the upper level. In the 1990s, I had a friend of mine who can sing opera go up there, and she said that was the best pitch that she's ever had in a stage. She was it was perfect pitch for her. The stage platform was still there at the time. I may have some pictures, I'm not quite sure. The pictures behind me are from the Wyman Opera House. Some of their ads that they had, like special attraction, Opera House, Auburn, Illinois, happy youngsters in a musical melee, childhood memories. Let's see, Wyman Opera House for benefit of the Manila Rebecca Lodge. Rebeccas were part of the Masonic Lodge. They were the female edition of it. They would have benefits. They had basketball games up in that opera house. They had a gentleman, Blind Boone, who went on a circuit throughout Illinois, starting up in Chicago. He was a blind man, but he played banjo or something like that. I'm not exactly sure, but it was really something to have him at your opera house. So I think they charged a whole 25 cents a piece for that one. Normally it was like 10 cents, 15 cents. And Blind Boone played there. They had the early graduations of the high school. I have a picture of a lady who lived to be 106, Grace Rohde, in her gown. Her well, it wasn't really a cap and gown situation. It was just a really fancy dress.
Yeah.
Coal mine wars were going on, and Auburn was not immune to having coal mine protesters come through. As a matter of fact, the front end of my house, there was a guy that they would call someone that didn't belong to the union was called a scab. And Jimmy Fee was a scab that worked in the mines. And apparently at one time they shot buckshot into the front of our house. When we were redoing the front porch, we found the buckshot. And of course, my dad didn't keep it because he thought it was too dangerous for it to keep. But when mom and dad moved into the house, it was a 4-room house. And wherever Jimmy Fee slept, he always had his bottle of alcohol, and he put it in the same location there every single time he went to bed. So there was a circle on the floor. And mom said that there were in the rooms there were only one light each that hung down from the ceiling, and the only way that they were able to get that circle off of the floor was to use Tide detergent. So after that she never used anything but Tide detergent to clean her clothes with. In connection with that, there were a couple of places that had the front porches. They found pipe bombs underneath. One lady happened to wake up in the middle of the night and heard some noise, and she actually pushed the pipe bomb away. She didn't even know it was there, but luckily it didn't explode. I think there was only one instance where a bomb actually went off at one of the scabs, but I don't think anybody was home at the time, and I don't think it did much damage. It was kind of like a Molotov cocktail or something like that, or it caused some burning, but it didn't blow up the house or something to that effect. So the coal mines were a good portion of Auburn's history. If it weren't for the coal mines, we wouldn't have become a city. And from 1914 to 1916, there was a census done, and the book is actually at the Presidential Library. I've gotten to see up until from 1865 until about 1900 or so, they would have little bands that they would get together. Just the local merchants would have like a woodwind band or a brass band or something like that in the town square. They had kind of a rectangle looking platform that they would perform on. And I'm not exactly sure why they built this bandstand, but in 1904, it was erected, and it was a 2-story bandstand. There were all kinds of events that would happen shortly thereafter. The 3-day free fish fry would happen in August, and can you imagine what it smelled like? 3 days of fish being fried. I just can't stand the smell of it in the first place, but 3 days of free fish fry, and it was all local catch. It was from the Sugar Creek and Panther Creek and whatever little creeks they could get fish from, and people would come from miles away. And they even had special stamps that were commissioned by the post office as part of the event. But the bandstand had an addition made to it at one point where they had the calaboose, which a calaboose is basically a holding cell for drunks. He would put the guys that got a little bit too intoxicated into the holding cell overnight, or if they got into a fight or something like that, just to keep them separated.
Thank you for joining me as we discovered Auburn's rich history. If you want to learn more, go to the Facebook group Auburn 150, or discover more articles on SangamonLink, produced by the Sangamon County Historical Society. Join me next week as we travel all the way to Verdon and discover the rich history their community has. See you next time.